Are you watching LCL reports?
That's cool.
Is this going to be a YouTube thing?
Yeah.
Nice.
This program is brought to you by FreeKeen.com. FreeKeen.com features audio, video, and blogs chronicling the transition to a voluntary society. FreeKeen.com also has comments and discussion forums so you can be heard. FreeKeen.com.
Don't get the blues, get Liberty News at LCL Report. Stash your swag or buy an ad at LCL Report.
It's the only way they can exist, otherwise you just have a business. It's voluntary exchange. But anyway, this TV movie is fantastic. If you ever get a chance, check it out. It's a DVD. It's the first one, not the later one they did for cable television. It's brilliant, just brilliant. And in it, they have this guy's getting therapy because his dreams change reality. And the psychiatrist, he's caught, the man who's the main character, George Orr, is caught outside Seattle, and he's taking drugs to keep himself from falling asleep, because when he sleeps, his dreams change the world, and he wakes up and it's all different. He's the only one who knows. So he's caught by the authorities, and he's forced to go to voluntary therapy, right? So he goes to a psychiatrist, and he's got to go, and the guy's like, so, you've got a drug problem. He goes, no, I've got a dream problem. He's like, what do you mean? He goes, well, and so he explains to him. Then the doctor starts to manipulate him. It starts to make him dream the world the way he wants the world to be. And so he makes him dream that the doctor has this great institute called the Haber Institute. Oh, and I better finish that last little bit.
Go ahead.
So yeah, what I was saying was now I'm trying to find ways to convince evangelical, particularly evangelical.
Sorry, that's my...
That was great. The original Cylon.
He lost my phone.
Yeah, I'm trying to find ways now to convince evangelical Christians of the moral superiority and logical superiority and ethical superiority of the anarchist approach, and trying to push them in that direction as much as possible, or coax them in that direction as much as possible. And sorry, getting distracted by the original Cylons.
Best interview ever.
Okay. So part of the problem is that many evangelical Christians are very much in favor of small government, which unfortunately the small government will start to grow. It is inevitable. It cannot be avoided. Clearly the history of the United States government shows this. Okay. So the message for evangelicals or people who are small government conservatives that I think is so important is to acknowledge that for a long time the concept of rights, natural rights, you have a right, supposedly as John Locke articulated in the second treatise, and they believe very strongly in this, God created man with certain inalienable rights, as Jefferson said, the right to life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, i.e. property. And so you have a right to be left alone by me, I have a right to be left alone by you. It's negative reciprocity, negative rights. What that has turned into, they say, is positive rights. You have a right to something, and you don't have a right to anything because that means you can enslave someone. No one has a positive right to anything. But in addition to that, if you've got negative rights, now I'm starting to see that the very government that was created to, or I've already seen it, but I'm trying to express to people, that the very government that was created, many of the governments, state, local, federal, that were created to supposedly protect their natural rights, at the outset they infringe on their natural rights. They infringe on their right to private property when they create the government, because they have to take their property to make the police force to supposedly protect them from other people taking their property. So again, you see there's this tautology there. So what do? You try to explain to people, even the very concept of rights under John Locke carries with it a tie to a rationale for government. You see, Locke was writing a rationale for limited government. He was also writing a rationale for overturning monarchy. But they use this to say government is justified. Supposedly we voluntarily give up some of our rights to get the rest of them protected by government. That's not voluntary. If it's voluntary, that's not government. That's business. That's voluntarism. That's personal governance. It's not the state government per se, the state federal government in the generic sense. So what you see is, from the outset, you've got to try to pull traditional conservatives in and say, look, your very underpinnings need to be questioned in a highly intellectual way. You need to look at these foundational documents and recognize where they went wrong. Don't hold them up as totemic shibboleths that cannot be questioned. You need to look at the structure of their arguments and say, is this a sound logical structure? And they don't hold. They don't morally hold. They don't logically hold. Locke's argument does not logically hold. It's fine if people want to feel, very confident about the concept of rights and so on. But I realized when I read Antonin Scalia's decision in Heller, he spends all this time, he says, yes, it's an individual right to keep and bear arms, and then at the end he says, oh, but of course rights can be attenuated. No, I'm sorry, Antonin. That's the idea about rights. You're not supposed to be able to constrain these. The speech rights, you supposedly have a right to free speech, but you can't shout fire in a crowded theater. Well, guess what? What if I want to have a theater where beforehand I have everybody agree, hey, you could shout fire here? No way. Government won't let me do that. There are all sorts of things that you see. You suppose you have a right to keep and bear arms. What if you get in a plane? The government that was created to protect your rights to keep and bear arms won't let pilots hold guns on the planes because they regulate the airwaves. They've taken over the airwaves since Roosevelt's time. Actually, since before then. Courts, and I brought up the example on my podcast. Sam Dodson goes to the court, tries to bring in a camera. Supposedly there's a right to be a journalist, right? We can talk about the states and federal government and what the actual specific phrasing was, but the government's there to protect your rights. Well, the government couldn't function in this court system if they allowed everybody to come in and use their rights inside the courtroom. It would be chaos. And literally, they wouldn't be able to work it. So they come up with rules and regulations. They regulate away your right to be a journalist. And then they arrest the guy and keep him in jail. Why? They're supposed to be protecting his right to be a journalist, and he comes in to be a journalist to watch them. And so you see this problem is fundamental to it's an inherent flaw in Locke's logic. Jefferson continued the flaw, as admirable as Jefferson was in so many ways. He continued this mistake, and as I stated in one of the podcasts at Liberty Conspiracy, he said that when government becomes contrary to protecting our rights, it must be overturned and replaced with something else. It needs to be overturned, but it doesn't need to be replaced by government, because all governments do that. And so that's where I stand on that, and that's what we try to do at the website, and meeting all the libertarians at the Free State Project, Porcfest. There are people who feel the same way. It's like, yeah, it's awesome.
LCL Report is looking for advertisers. Do you have a product, service, candidate, or charity that would love to be spotlighted? Look at our numbers. Over 250,000 views this month. Over 700 subscribers this month. Multiple awards on YouTube. Over 500 subscribers to our Facebook group. There's pretty much nothing I won't do for a good story. If you want to know about rates,